Thank you, John. I appreciate that introduction. Um, how many folks in the audience, and I can't see all of you, have viewed the film already? I hope at least one or two. If not, I'll encourage you to do that after you get off of this. Um, the film itself is an offshoot of an organization called All It Takes. They're headquartered in California, and they have been working with students for the last 10 years, addressing student anxiety, the issues surrounding that, and how to give a voice to that. And they've been highly successful. Um, their ability to do that, obviously, just like everywhere else in the country, was 100% eviscerated in March, and everything was closed down. The training itself used to be taking students by school, by grade, to a camping location for a weekend, a Friday, Saturday, coming back on Sunday. And they would work with the students very intensely all weekend long to get them to understand how to express their anxiety in a positive way, or a non-negative way, I should say, and what they can do about it, and gave them tools by which they were able to address this. The thing that happened that was a surprise when they first started doing this 10 years ago was all those students went back to their schools and they all became mentors. They all became people that would talk to other students there in the school. And it's one thing for an adult to talk to a child, it's another thing for a child to talk to a child. And it just kept spreading, and it just kept getting better. The city of Los Angeles contracted with All It Takes to do these workshops with Los Angeles city schools. That was their main client for a long time. Again, in March, as it happened to everybody here in the US and all over the world, our lives basically got changed. Anxiety, which was something that people were kind of experiencing, everybody is now experiencing it, and in levels that are unprecedented. Parents are becoming teachers, and they're finding out that it really isn't the teacher's fault. A little humor there. But it was very, very, the folks at All It Takes knew that they had to do something because they have the expertise and they have the history, but they had to do this virtually. So they tried to figure out how to do this. They utilized one film they found out in California that addressed angst in small children. But the real thing that they wanted to emphasize was, what is the teacher feeling? How is the teacher doing this? Nobody went to school and learned how to teach via Zoom or whatever else they're using during a worldwide pandemic. Those courses just did not exist. They probably still don't. So these folks all got together. Lori Woodley is the CEO and head facilitator at All It Takes. And they created their own film, which is called A Trusted Space. She took this idea to local filmmakers out where she lived and local educators and the Board of Education out there in California. And she wanted to find out what it was going to cost and how long this was going to take to do. And initially, the cost was going to be over $500,000 and take at least 6 months to do. And she was able to tell people and get them on board with her story. The film was totally donated. The making of the film, the appearances of the people in the film, the educators that are in the film, 100% totally donated. So it didn't cost anything. So this is available free to everybody in the country. It not only addresses the anxiety, it also has modules in it, social emotional learning modules that mean something to folks that are teachers. And on how do we do this? A step-by-step approach. How do you get to where you are established with direct contact with students over some kind of electronic device? And I'll use Zoom because that's what most of them are using. How do you handle your own stress? How do you communicate how you're handling your stress to your students who obviously are handling their own stress? What do you do for that? How do you make that happen? The film and the learning modules gave concrete, doable steps to everybody that's involved with this, parents, teachers, and students, so that by doing this, they had a brick that they could come from. They had a rock that all of them could use in order to get into this. The actual film and the learning modules was released on September 18th of this year. At the end of October, they had almost 1 million people that had seen this thing. Currently, as of yesterday, they had 1.9 million people that had signed up for the website and signed up to go look at the film and to do the actual modules and to download it. The other things that have happened with this, the teachers themselves that have done this, and they've given all kinds of testimonies. The main testimony that everybody has done is they couldn't finish the film in one setting because they were crying so hard. The emotions that our teachers are going through here is hideous. They're all dedicated to the students out there. They're all dedicated to the children. They certainly are not doing this for the money. They are getting paid something, so it's not free to them, but they want to do more. And I don't know a teacher on the planet that hadn't used their own funds to get things for their own schoolroom because they couldn't get it by any other means. So the dedication of what teachers want to do for students is not something that needs to be addressed. It's out there. It does need to be emphasized, though. But for the almost 2 million teachers that have looked at this, they are able to take what they saw, turn it into their own lessons, and superintendents have done this. I worked with the Waynesboro school system starting in June to try and get these things out there just before the school year started. We actually have 2 teachers and 1 student from Waynesboro who are in the film. I can't tell who they are. Got to keep those confidential. But we have 2 of our local people here who were very instrumental in what the film was portraying. 1 student here who was very instrumental in what the film is portraying. It is amazing to me how this thing has taken off and gone around the globe. We're in 45 states and in 22 different countries all around the world. People are constantly bombarding Lori and her staff with requests for coming out and talking or getting on the Zoom thing and doing special one-on-one Zoom meetings. One very moving story was the Native Americans out in North Dakota and South Dakota. Forgotten Americans, as some people refer them to. They needed a little more than just what the film portrayed and just what the modules portrayed. And so they set up a free 6-week course to be talked with over the internet so they could talk to each other 90 minutes a week. And the response to that has been overwhelming. Again, I keep using this word overwhelming because COVID itself is pretty overwhelming. But to be able to successfully fight back and successfully be able to give people ideas and clues as to what needs to be done, folks are starving. It's almost like throwing a jug of air to a drowning man. And they're lapping this up. The California Board of Education has adopted this as a standard for the entire state of California. And they also got a hold of PBS. And PBS nationwide is now airing this film and the presentation and a few extra things done by Lori and her staff all across the nation. So, and I got to emphasize again that this thing, which was hugely, it was done, the whole thing was put together in 6 weeks. All the learning modules, the film itself, the editing, the presenting, and everything. 6 weeks, because these folks realized how much this was needed by everybody in the country. And it was their dedication that got all this done. It was Lori and their staff that were able to do all the writing. So it was a lot of 14, 16-hour days to get this completed. But that's what they did for 6 weeks' time, because this was important. This is a passion of theirs, and they wanted to get it out. My ask, I have 2. My ask for everybody that's looking at this is to, and I'll put the URL in the chat, but go to the All It Takes website, and under there you will find it says programs, and you'll pull down on that and you go to a trusted space. That is where this film is. The only thing they ask of you is your name and an email address so they can keep this up for their statistics for what they're doing. The second ask is, this is film number 1. They are going to be doing film number 2. They don't know when. This is going to have to be soon. They don't know what that's going to cost either. I'm going to propose from my Rotary Club here in Waynesboro that we do a global grant for the entire district in order to support what it is they're doing. And I'm hoping that that district grant here can be used by other districts around the country. This is something that I think everybody can, there isn't a person in our country right now that doesn't have a kid, grandkid, a teacher kid, somebody who's affected by this through the education system. I do believe this is what Rotary was set up to do. Who's this going to benefit? Everybody. And so that is basically why I'm promoting this through what I'm doing here with Lori. So I'll open this out for anybody that has any questions, and I'll type in the URL into the chat.
All right, if you have any questions for Tom, definitely put those in the chat, and that way we can get those to him. Or you can hold down your space bar and that will temporarily unmute you and you can ask your question there.
I would advise when you go out and look at this film, have a box of tissues very close at hand. I had to use them.
How long is the film?
The film is about an hour.
Color? In color?
Yeah, it's digitally done, so color was not a problem.
You know, if the military is doing anything like this, I have a grandson in the military, and I think it's getting to him.
I haven't heard of any military organization using it yet, no.
Have the Department of Defense schools picked it up, do you know?
Not that I'm aware of, but I would be surprised if it wasn't, since they're still part of the educational system here from the US.
Do you know any statistics about suicide among school children and among teachers since COVID hit?
And I do have some facts about what this program has done to lower the suicide rates in schools where it has been, where the work has been done. It's too soon to tell if this has affected the suicide rates of our current population, and I don't have any statistics on that, but I do know that the All It Takes program, when they would do that for the public schools that they were doing, that suicide was substantially impacted and decreased. The number of people dropping out of schools was decreased. The number of people that just didn't bother doing their homework was decreased. The increase were grades. The increase were the number of successful applicants to college after they got out of high school. And also took a nosedive for these schools that had been through the program when they were doing this on the weekends. Don't have anything for right now.
But has the suicide rate gone up among school-age kids?
Yes, it has. Yes, it has, unfortunately. As it has for parents also.
Is the goal to eliminate anxiety or to channel anxiety from negative to positive?
The bulk lesson in all of this is that anxiety is an emotion, and we all have emotions, and our emotions are hardwired into us that were given to our ancestors many years ago to react to danger. An emotional response to fear does not really do anything but paralyze, freeze, or flight. When you can take that emotional feeling and turn it into a logical response, it allows you to logically handle the fear or the factor or whatever it is in your stomach, the butterflies, and identify that I can handle this. So it's not to eliminate anxiety, because that's never going to happen. It's to realize that anxiety is happening to everyone. Therefore, it kind of makes it sort of acceptable. And then what do you do with it? How do you turn that into something that you can use as a positive? And the film emphasizes how to do that. I'll give you a case in point: the anxiety of teachers trying to connect with students via Zoom. and they got 25 or 30 of them out there, and the one teacher, they get taught how to do that in the classroom. They'll get taught how to do this here. So the solution to that, or one of the solutions to that, was for the teacher to spend 10 minutes with a student, either every day or every hour. And it's just the teacher and the student, one-on-one. And that one-on-one exchange would be to, well, tell me how you're feeling. Let me tell you how I'm feeling. The teacher always starts this because that gives permission to the student to then do the same. And they talk through it. And by doing that, they establish a personal connection. This is why teachers are in classrooms milling around talking to their students, that thing, to establish that personal connection. And this does the same thing.
All right. Any other questions for Tom?
I'll put my email address into the chat in case anybody would like to send me an email and ask me additional questions. Would that be okay?
Tom, I have one question for you. Are you familiar with Peace Builders program?
I have heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it. No, sir.
Because our club is one. We've just become one. Prior to Pat Kofalt that you were speaking with just a moment ago is been the head of this whole program, and we were real excited about it. And then the COVID hit and kind of just put everything on a back burner. But when you meant about the bullying, that's one of the aspects that the Peace Builders strives very hard to eradicate. So I'm thinking a great opportunity, and maybe we'll be in touch with you on seeing how we can maybe work with you on that.
I'd be happy to help. I strongly believe in that also.
Well, one final thing on a personal note, I appreciate the visual that you gave a moment ago when you said it's one thing to have an adult talking to a child, but a child talking to a child, altogether different dynamic. And as a father of 4, I can readily relate when my children were small. It's one thing if dad said something, but when their big brother said something, carried altogether different weight. So thank you for that. And thank you
You're
for
welcome.
speaking with us.
You're very welcome.